There are a lot of times I've had subjects given to me, but this is the toughest one I've ever had given to me, to speak on the confident woman. I went to a therapist for a couple of weeks. Went with Margaret to get a pedicure and a couple of other things. Spent all day at the spa, which was an awesome experience, and I'm not qualified. But I'm qualified to talk to you about confidence, and I'm very excited. In fact, it's so interesting to speak all of the women. For years, I spoke in the Promise Keepers movement and spoke in stadiums for men all the time. And I've been with the guys, and now I'm with the women. And it just shows you that if you're faithful to God, He'll keep rising you higher throughout your entire journey, and just keep going up and up. It's just, So don't be discouraged if in the beginning it doesn't look good. Just stay faithful, and one day you'll get to go to a Joyce Meyer concert. And there at that conference, you'll be able to be with women, and if women could, if men weren't so insecure, bless our hearts, a lot of men do a lot of Bible stuff based on their insecurity. But if women could have just kind of been a little bit more in control, I have a feeling things could have been a little better. For example. Think about it when Jesus was born. What a difference would it have made if instead of 3 wise men, if 3 wise women, come on, talk to me. First of all, they would have asked for directions. They would have arrived on time. They would have helped deliver the baby. They would have cleaned up the stable. They would have made a casserole. They would have brought practical gifts. And there would have been peace on earth. I want to talk to you about becoming a person of confidence. The Apostle Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The phrase I can tells me that the Apostle Paul had an attitude to win. He was an I can person. I can do tells me that in his life and ministry he had a commitment or an effort to win. I can do all things through Christ tells me that he had a strength and a power to win. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That attitude to win, that effort and commitment that Joyce so beautifully talked about last night, that gives us the courage of a confident person to get into the arena of action, that attitude coupled with that effort to win, understanding that it's not self-confidence, but it's God confidence that gives us the power and the strength, allowed the Apostle Paul, and it will allow you and me to become a confident person. Somebody told me the other day that they thought confidence was that uplifting feeling that you have before you truly understand the situation. And we've all been there, haven't we? But as I thought about this time together, and as I asked God to help prepare my heart for you, and I'm sharing with you a lesson that I developed just for this conference, in becoming a confident person, I believe there are 4 things that happen in a person's life that allow them to take this incredible journey into the land of confidence. And I would like to give you those 4 things, and I'd like to pull out maybe a few passages of Scripture that you could apply in this journey to becoming a confident person. I think confidence is a result of, number 1, following your purpose and following your passion. When a person follows their passion, when a person follows the dream, the God-given dream that God has given into them, it's amazing what happens to their confidence level. Let me illustrate. I'm going to give you a first-class immediate illustration. A few moments ago, David came out here and he talked about patriotism, citizenship, voting, doing our part as a Christian. And here's a man that admittedly is not in his strength zone, he's not naturally the communicator. And yet as I watched him, he was with ease, and he had passion about what he was believing, and he had conviction in what he was saying. And I listened to him, and I thought, there is a classic example of a person that is confident because they are doing something that they are passionate about. You see, passionate is the confidence builder. When you have passion, when I have passion in our life, it's not an option to do things. It's not an option to consider. It's something that compels us to say, I have to do this. That's what passion does for confidence. And when David was out here so wonderfully, ably illustrating and helping us to understand our responsibilities as citizens, I thought to myself, this is a person filled with passion, doing something he would not normally do. But because he believes in it so strongly, he has no choice. That's what passion does to confidence. That's why the Apostle Paul would talk about forgetting the things that are behind, reaching toward those things that are, I press toward the mark. That's why the Apostle Paul said, I run in a race so that I can win that race. I run for the prize. What is the Apostle Paul doing? He is sharing with us that passion is the great energizer. It's the great confidence builder. In fact, when people come to me and they talk about somebody being high energy or low energy, and they'll say, well, that's a high energy person, that's a low energy person. I sometimes, if I have a moment, I explain to them there's no such thing as a high energy person and a low energy person. There's just a person that has passion, and there's a person who doesn't. And if you have passion, you're high energy. Because you're passionate about something, and I'm here to tell you, they can't keep you down. You've got a message, you've got a word to say, you've got something to do, and it's inside of you, and it's a fire that burns within your bones. And to be honest with you, you're not taking a vote, you're not looking for some kind of consensus. It is the compelling, motivating thing that says, I must do what I must do because I am passionate about what I feel. So if you're passionate, you have energy. And can I say this? If you lack passion, you lack energy. I have never known a passionless person that was full of energy. Not one time. Not one time I've ever run into somebody who said, oh, I am so excited about today, I have no clue. I can hardly wait to do nothing. Oh, what an amazing day to leave butt prints in the sands of time. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. That was a new one. Just a moment here. I need to write that one down. I just don't want to forget it. You know what I'm saying? At my age, you understand? You understand? Mark, we were going to the car the other day, and Margaret said, John, we're forgetting way too many things. I said, you're right. She said, I got a plan. I said, what is it? She said, you remember who we are, and I'll remember where we're going. And it's working. It's working. I remember as a kid pastor in southern Indiana. That's where I started. You from southern Indiana, be faithful. Someday you can speak at a women's conference. You just keep going up. You've got to go through the men first. You got those trials, those difficult times, but God will help you with those guys, and then you get to go to the women. The first Sunday, the first Sunday in my church, it was in Hillham, Indiana, and you go, oh, this is a new experience. I've Never met anyone since I've left Hillham from Hillham. You see, in Hillham they have 11 houses, 2 garages, a country store. There's a suburb 5 miles away called French Lick. Yeah, that's it. And the first Sunday in our little church, it was just 3 people. 3 people, and 2 of them were Margaret and me. and an old elderly lady lived by the church. It was just Maud, Margaret, and me. I knew nothing about leadership. If I didn't know anything about leadership that day, I would have voted on everything I wanted to see passed in the church. I thought about voting, but I wasn't sure where Margaret stood on a couple of issues. I could see myself losing the first week 2-1. You know what I'm saying? Not a good start. This little church had suffered down times, discouraging times, splits. Their self-image, their confidence was absolutely a 0. And as I looked at this little congregation that God gave me in my first start, I realized that they needed to have confidence. They needed to get their self-image up, and there's a relationship between those two. And so I began working real hard. Margaret worked real hard. Maud came to church. And we started growing. We started growing, and just people kept coming. When we got up to about 100, one week I thought we ought to have a big day. I mean, a day that would be a faith day, a day that would just blow these people's minds. And so I remember one Sunday morning standing up and saying, the first Sunday of October, which was a couple months away, we're going to have 300 people in our church. We're going to break all the records, and we're going to have 300 people. Now you have to understand the church building only seated 85. But I chose October because it would be nice, the weather would be good, we'll open the windows, we'll put chairs on the outside, and we got an empty house that's the next door beside us, and they'll let us use that, and so we'll have over 300. And when I said that, the disbelief was amazing. The people just looked at me. I mean, the 300, 300 was way beyond anything that they couldn't imagine 300. I mean, some of those people had never seen 300 people. In fact, the best people in the church would come to me and say, Pastor, this would be amazing, but we never thought we'd have 100, and this is just beyond us. And I would always ask them the same thing. Well, okay, if you're having a hard time believing the number, will you just help me? Will you fill your car up with people? And they also, we'll fill our car up with people. We worked hard. Those people prayed. They planned. We had that place just wonderful for the people. And on the Sunday it came. I'm telling you, people were coming from all over those country hills. I mean, they were coming in there, and we packed the place out. All people standing around the sides. The overflow was totally full. And I thought to myself, this is amazing. I think we made it. And right before I preached, the Sunday school superintendent stood up and he said, we've never had a day like this in this entire valley. This is the most people that ever come to church. And he said, we ushers have counted, and he said, we have 299 people. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why do I have to be the only pastor in the whole world that has honest ushers? I mean, good God. Hello. But then, passion took over. As a kid, 23-year-old preacher, I stood up and I looked at the congregation and I said, how many are we supposed to have today? They said, 300. I said, how many do we have? They said, 299. I said, we're one short. Now, I'll tell you what that means. I'm going to ask Benny to come up and lead some more songs. I'm going to walk out of here, and I'm going to go find one more person. And I'm going to bring them back to this church, and I'm not preaching till we have 300 people. Those people clapped. Those people cheered. I mean, these farmers, I watched a little transformation on their face. They stood up and they clapped. I got off of that platform. I walked down that middle aisle. Those people were patting me on the back, said, preacher, go get him, preacher. God bless you, preacher, go get him. I was full of, I walked out that door. I got out to the end of that property. Now what am I going to do? It was at that moment I realized passion had filled my life. I looked across the street, one of the two service stations across the street. Sandy owned the service station, and with him was Glenn, and I knew them both. Sandy had all his life lived in that valley, never had darkened the door. They told me his mother died praying for him. Hardened person against God and the church. And beside him was Glenn, who happened to be Benny, the song leader's brother, who was the kind of the town drunk. But I'd always get my gas there, and they liked me, and I walked across the street, and I said, guys, how you doing? They said, preacher, you got a crowd over there today, don't you? I said, yeah, we got a great crowd. He said, how did you get your 300? Everybody knew we were getting 300. I mean, everybody knew that it was 300. I mean, just everybody on the whole valley, because there were only about 400 in the valley. So, you know, and you had to get them all almost. You had to get them all. He said, did you get your 300? And I smiled, and I said, not yet. I said, we have 299. I've got a question to ask one of you, too. We need one more person, and I told the people I was going to come and get one more. Which one of you two would like to be the hero for the entire valley? You just have to ask the question correctly. Because I said, whoever goes across the street with me, I'm telling you, you're going to put us over the top, and everybody's going to talk about it was Sandy or it was Glenn that put us over the top. I said, which one of you would like to be the hero for the whole valley? And Sandy looked at Glenn, and Glenn looked at Sandy, and Sandy said, I'm here to tell you, I've never been to that church, but let's go help this preacher out. And he put a close sign on his gas station, and Glenn was on one side and Sandy was on the other side. We walked about across that street. We walked in that church. Those people were singing songs out of a hymn book, but when they saw us coming in there with two of them, they threw those song books in the air. They started clapping and hugging and shouting. We took them down to the front row, kicked two members off of it, and sent them right down there. And I preached the message. And that morning, at the end of the message, one of the people who came and said we could never have 300, his name was Mike. He came up to me and he was weeping. He was weeping. And he hugged me and he said, John, I'll never doubt God again. I'll never doubt God again. Listen to me. What happened? Well, if I could give me just 30 more seconds on the story. Sandy, who had never been to church before, his mother died praying for him. When the service was over, he came up and said, you know what, preacher, this wasn't too bad. The next Sunday, much to my surprise, here comes Sandy with his wife, his daughter, son-in-law, and his grandson right down on the front row. He didn't know any better. He thought that was his pew. And I just poured my heart out, and about 4 weeks later when I gave the invitation, Sandy and his wife and his daughter and son-in-law and his grandson all came forward to receive Jesus Christ. Now, what am I saying? What am I saying? Listen to me. What am I saying? Here's what I'm saying. When you have a passion deep down inside to do something for God, there will be a God confidence that will come alongside of you that will equip you for the task that is ahead. It begins with passion. You can feel it, can't you? I can feel it. It started with worship today. It continued with God all over Joyce, and it continued when Dave was here. There's just an anointing on the service this morning, and you can just sense it. And I just want to stop long enough to say I realize that the source of what is happening today is God and only God. To Him be praised, to Him be lifted up, to Him be glorified. There is no other God. And you can sense it within you. Some of you in St. Louis, this incredible conference, the fire is beginning to burn. And you for a long time have felt that stirring, that God stirring within you to make a difference and do something. And with that passion today, your understanding is going to come a confidence that's going to enable you to say things that you thought you never could say, to do things you thought you could never do, to pray like you never thought that you could pray, and to connect with God and others like you never thought that could. What takes you over the edge? A passion that builds within you confidence, God confidence, that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. That's number one. Have you got it? I've got it. I feel it. Number two, confidence is a result not only of following your passion, it's a result of finding your strength zone. Our strength zone. What we do well. That's why the Apostle Paul talked about spiritual gifts. That's why he talked about how the body of Christ complements and completes one another by the spiritual gifts that God gives each one of us. These gifts that allow us to find our strength zone and get into the area that we do extremely well. I thought last night, Joyce, that you did an amazing, amazing job talking about weaknesses and about our weaknesses, and don't work on the weaknesses, and be sure that you get into your strength zone. And I want to take maybe 5 minutes in this lesson today to underline what Joyce said last night, because she was right on. What Joyce was trying to tell all of us here is that what you have to do is you not only have to have a passion within you, but you got to find out what your giftedness is and how God wired you and how God wired me, and you've got to go find that strength zone. One of the many things that Joyce has taught me is this one. I heard it in one of her lessons. She said, God will help you be all that you can be, but He'll never help you be someone else. Absolutely. He'll help you. He'll help you be all that you can be. He'll help you reach your potential. If you try to be the person that God intends for you to be, He will absolutely empower you and equip you, but He's never going to help you try to be someone else. In other words, appreciate your uniqueness. Appreciate how God has wired you. Appreciate the gifts that God has given you. When you and I appear before God, we won't be accountable for any of the gifts He didn't give us. Find your strength zone. Let me see if I can walk us through that for a few minutes. What I'm going to say now is a little bit maybe emotionally for you to handle, because it's contrary to how we have culturally been raised. But I'm going to give you a phrase that will set you free. It really will set you free. It might bother you for a moment, but it'll set you free. So look at your neighbor and just say to them, you're about to be set free. Go ahead and tell them that. Look right back at your neighbor and say, and it's about time. Okay. Here's the phrase, my friend. I'm talking about now in the area of your giftedness. I'm talking about in the area of your skills. I'm talking about in the area of your abilities. Here's the phrase. Stop working on your weaknesses. Yeah, you heard it right. I know the pen doesn't want to work, but you know, press a little bit, write it down. Stop working on your weaknesses. Now, I'm talking about skills. I'm talking about abilities. I'm talking about giftedness now. Stay right in that context with me. And you say, John, why should I stop working on my weaknesses? It's very simple. You ought to stop working on your weaknesses because you're weak in your weaknesses. In other words, you're not any good. You're just not any good in that area. And that's okay. It's okay. Because you have a strength zone. But what happens is if you spend your time and attention on your weak zone, then you never can develop as you should your strength zone. Let me illustrate. You're just doing so good. Stay right with me. Watch this. From a 1 to a 10, let's say I'm a 2 in an area. I'm not very good at all. It's a real weakness of mine in some kind of a skill or some kind of ability. Well, in areas that you didn't choose, areas like abilities and skills and things like that, if you work hard and develop yourself, you can only increase about 2 numbers. And so let's say you really work hard. Well, for example, I'll illustrate. I'll use myself for a moment. I love music. That's the good news. The bad news is I can't sing. I mean, it's just not my gift. But I love it. In fact, I hear people, they open their mouth and it just is good. And I open my mouth and it's not good. I can't sing. It's not my gift. Not one of you came to this convention saying, boy, I just hope that John Maxwell sometime in his speaking today breaks forth in song. Would that? I'm just praying. I would just a couple bars, John, just a couple. No, nobody wants to hear me sing. You know why they don't want to hear me sing? Because I can't. I'm not any good at singing. So let's say I told you, well, I'm going to be an opera singer. I have the passion. I have the desire. I'm going to take music appreciation. I'm going to get lessons. I'm going to take voice. I'm going to do all that. Can I tell you something? It doesn't really matter. 2 years, 3 years after I spent a lot of money, a lot of time, I'm going to go from about a 1 to a 1.2. Why? It's not my strength zone. You see, if you'll go to something you're a 6 in, from a 1 to a 10. You're already just a hair above average. If you go to something you're a little bit better at, hey, if you discipline yourself, develop, you could become a 7. You could become an 8. If you're a 7, you could be a 9. Can I tell you, people stand in lines for 9s. You have to find your strength zone so that when you develop yourself and really discipline yourself and really work those gifts, you can get yourself up to a place that puts you into a unique place where then you can have an amazing amount of confidence because you're doing the things that you do well. When you hear Joyce speak, you don't get nervous for Joyce. I mean, not one time do I hear Joyce speak and I say, oh come on, girl, you can do this. You can... You know why I don't get nervous for her? She's in her strength zone. She's as relaxed. She's comfortable. She's at home. She's in her strength zone. When Darlene leads worship, when Darlene's leading worship, I don't say, oh God, help her to not be inhibited today. Oh God, help her to kind of break out. And wouldn't it be something if she could dance just a little bit? Oh God, just help her. I don't pray for her. Why don't I? She's in her strength zone. And when you're in your strength zone, you're not only good at what you're doing, but you have confidence in what you're doing, and you help a lot of people because you're doing what God wired you to do. Does this make sense? Let me illustrate. It's very easy for me to illustrate because I really only do 4 things well. I'm basically a worthless person, and very proud of it. And tell everybody I'm just not good at that. Trust me, you don't want me to. No. I only do 4 things very well. In fact, Margaret and I were talking the other day over breakfast, and she thinks it's 3 now. So I think you go from 3 to 2 to 1, and then you got to go home. You know what I'm saying? You go home to God. But I only do a few things well. But one of my strength zone is communicating. I'm having the time of my life out here connecting with you. I understand when Joyce is, I understand that. It's my strength zone. And every once in a while, Margaret will be asked to speak at a conference because I'm going to a conference. And Margaret is amazingly gifted and much more talented and well-rounded than me, but speaking is not her gift. And I always hate it when somebody asks her to speak because I know what's going to happen. She's going to come to me and she said, John, they want me to speak. What do you think? Sure, honey. You know what the first question she asked me? How do I start? She says, okay, come on. How do I start? And I don't help her at all because, I'll say, well, sweetheart, wait till you get there. It's a banquet, no big deal. Find the feeling of it, get the sense of what's happening, get in the mood, you know what I mean? Play off what's happening. You'll know what to say when you get up there. She hates that. Now, am I trying to disappoint her? No. Because that's how I do it, because you got to sense, you got to feel what's happening. That's why I come in early and do the worship and the whole thing. I want to be in it, so when I'm up here to communicate, I can just kind of fill in where I need to. This is easy for me, and so I'm just telling wait until you're there. Or it's just like, what should I speak on? Hello. Drives me nuts. It's not her gift. Now I'm going to turn this around, because I'm the worthless one. I have been known to go into my clothes closet and stand in a comatose state with little slobbers, looking at clothes, trying to figure out what to wear. And Margaret will miss me after a while. 15 minutes, she's missing me. It's kind of like, John's not here. Where's John? Where did John go? And she knows it wasn't like the rapture and she's left behind. It'll be the other way around, so she knows that ain't gonna happen. So John, where are you? And pretty soon she'll make her way back to the master bedroom, because she knows where. It's just, John, honey, are you in the closet? Yeah, I'm in the closet. Honey, how long have you been in there? Oh, half hour. Can I help you? Yeah, would you help me? And then it becomes very embarrassing, because first thing she asked me to do is leave the closet. She said, honey, just go outside there for a moment. So I go out in a kind of like a anticipatory mood that within a minute or two, everything will be fine. She'll ask me what I'm doing and where I'm going, and she'll pull stuff down, and then she'll come out of the closet and she'll just toss them and give me a big wink. There, wear that, honey, that'll be fine. And oh, thank you very much. And I put it all on, and I go, and I feel so good. I may not know how to colors. This may not be my strength zone, but I'm here to tell you, I am no dummy, and I know systems. And when I come back and I have worn something that she says worked, I remember that, and I put everything on the same hanger. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. It may not be my strength zone, but I've got a system. So a couple weeks later, when I'm really needing something, you know what I mean, and I don't know what to do, I just go and I pull it with confidence. I pull that hanger out. I put those clothes on. I walk out of that closet, and she looks at me and says, are you going to wear that again? Yes, I was. Oh, honey, she said, that's so boring. You wore it about 6 or 7 days ago. Here, she said, let's change the shirt here. And she goes in and changes, and what she calls mixes and matches is nothing more than she is just messing with my mind. That's what she's doing. She's just messing with my mind. Her whole goal is to keep me off balance in the closet. I know what her goal is, just messing with my mind. There are times I've got to do something real early, and I'll go in the closet, and honest to God, she does all of my stuff because I'm not good. But maybe she forgot, or I went to bed earlier, she went to bed, and I'll get up maybe at 5:30. I have to get up for something, and I'll go in, I'll say, oh, dear God, I don't know what to do. But I don't want to wake her up, so I'll put it on what I think, works. And I'll go, and I'll come back maybe midday, and as soon as I walk in the house, she looks at me and says, John, did you wear that? I think I did. No, Margaret, it's a mirage. I'm buck naked in front of you. It's a mirage. No. Did you? And the next question, 37 years, hello. The next question, who saw you? I was on CNN today on a talk show. The whole world saw me. You're the only one that didn't see me until I got back here. Now, I kid you not. Margaret, if she were here right now, Margaret would say, I have no idea. I literally teach him. I brought him in the closet and I say, these things match. I've taught him colors. I've given him color charts. Margaret cannot figure out why I can't figure out. You know why? Colors, it's her strength zone. It's just natural. She has all the confidence in the world. It's no big deal. I'm completely out of my strength zone. You see, confidence comes when you find your spiritual gift and you couple that discipline of developing your strength zone with a passion you have to be all that you could. Now all of a sudden the confidence factor really is beginning to rise because you're not only passionate about what you feel, but you're doing something that you're good at, and that confidence factor begins to increase. Does this make sense? Okay, are you learning something? Okay, that's all right. We don't have time for that. Just tell your neighbor I'm learning something. Go ahead and tell them that. Tell them you're learning something. Look right back at them and say, not near enough yet. Number 3, confidence is not only a result of following your passion and finding your strength zone, it's a result of knowing God's will for your life. It goes beyond just being passionate about something and finding your giftedness and getting into your strength zone. It also continues when you begin to know God's will for your life. I'm going to just, remember when Paul was before King Agrippa and he was giving his testimony? Let me just read this just quickly out of the message. And he's explaining to Agrippa his journey, his spiritual journey. And I looked up and I said, who are you, Master? And the voice answered, I am Jesus, the one you humiliated and hunted down like an animal. But now up on your feet, I have a job for you. And then notice these phrases. This is incredible. He says, I've handpicked you to be a servant and a witness to what's happening today and to what I'm going to show you. I am sending you. Paul, I've handpicked you. I'm sending you off to open the eyes of outsiders so they can see the difference between dark and light and choose light, and see the difference between Satan and God and choose God. Here we go. I'm sending you. Paul, I'm sending you off to present my offer of sins forgiven and a place in the family of God, and inviting them into the company of those who begin real living by believing in me. And there's what Paul says. What could I do, King Agrippa? I couldn't just walk away from a vision like that. He's saying, King, you just have to understand. This was the day I found my purpose in life. This was the day that I understood that God had a purpose for me. It's been said that there are 2 great days in a person's life: the day you were born and the day you understand why. And the Apostle Paul said, King Agrippa, this was the day I understood why. The reason I can stand in front of you with confidence, the reason I can stand in front of you with boldness, the reason that I can literally give my life for the gospel is because I want you to understand something. I'm not only passionate about what I'm doing, I not only have found my strength zone, but I'm here to tell you, I know what God's will is for my life. For the last 4 years, I've done for my own spiritual walk with God what I call Bible projects, Bible studies of characters. The Hebrew writer says that we're running a race and we're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, and these witnesses are encouraging us as we're running our journey. And one day I asked myself, I wonder if these great men and women of faith, specifically talking about Hebrews 11, but I wonder if these great men and women of faith, if they could come out of the stands and they could run one lap with me or one lap with you, and you could condense their life into one phrase, what would they say to you? And knowing your purpose and knowing God's will for your life brings me to a lady in the Old Testament. Her name was Esther. You see, if Esther could step out of the crowd, and if Esther could come down and run one lap with you, I know what she would say. Of all the things that happened to her, if Esther could run one lap with you, she would say to you and she would say to me, God has a place for you. He has a place for you. Because you see, in Esther's life, from the very beginning, I think she felt out of place. At a very young age, she was adopted into a family, and I'm sure there were times when that whole kind of adoption process would help her to kind of understand that she wasn't really of that family. There was that issue, and then she was in a strange country with a different culture. I think Esther was, as she grew up, probably had a sense of never quite being in the right place. And you know the story. One day Esther and her girlfriends were down at the shopping mall. Maxwell translation here. They saw a poster that there was going to be a beauty pageant, and I don't know, I think Esther, on a dare from her friends, entered the beauty pageant. You know what she won, and you know what the prize was? You got the king. Although I'm not sure that was a prize. Now she's really out of place. This girl is an average girl from probably a very average home, and now she's in an incredible palace, and she has servants, and she has clothes and possessions, and everything is at her disposal. Now Esther is she's major out of place. I promise you, she's probably as uncomfortable as possible. Then you know what happened with her people, the Jewish people, and the fact that they could quickly become exterminated. And Uncle Mordecai started pressing her and saying, Esther, you got to do something about this. Esther, come on, you got to do something. You got to help us. We're in trouble. And Esther kept saying, oh, no, this is not going to work. I haven't been here long. I'm new at this. I'm not sure the king would even hand out the scepter to me. And what happens if he does? It's my own life. And Esther is miserable because she just doesn't sense she's in the right place. Until one day Uncle Mordecai communicates to her, Esther, who knows but you've come into the kingdom for such a time as this. And Esther, for the first time, understands that God has a place for her. Confidence begins to invade her, and courage begins to fill her, and she says, if I perish, I perish. I now have a mission. You see, Esther got confidence the day that she saw that God had a purpose for her life. And He has a purpose for yours. Wouldn't it be amazing at St. Louis? And God can do this sort of thing, can He? Wouldn't it be amazing in St. Louis at this incredible Joyce Meyer conference if you found the purpose? Wouldn't it be amazing if you all of a sudden got that settled in your life? I've got to hasten. We're all getting hungry. And I understand that. But I want to encourage you. I do have the gift of encouragement, Joyce. I just want to encourage you that you never need to worry about having the speaker go way beyond lunch if he's fat. You just look at me and know we don't skip lunch. You just understand. Have faith. If I was a skinny person, you'd say, dear God, he's not hungry. And here I am, hungry, and he doesn't know that I have these physical needs, and he's going to go way beyond 132, 230, and I'm going to be, and he won't miss it. And look at me and be encouraged. We will not skip lunch. Which brings me to point number 4. You are so terrific. Confidence is a result of number 4, obeying God's will for your life. Confidence is a result of obeying God's will for your life. Not only knowing what your purpose is, but it's in the obedience flow that confidence begins to fill us. John chapter 2, remember the wedding feast, the water turned into wine, the Lord's first miracle, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, what does she say? She looks at the servants, and when they run out of wine, whatever he says to you, do it. And the servants did. You know the story. And when they brought the water turned to wine to the people at the marriage feast, the host, etc., they were amazed. They said, "What happened? Usually we have the best wine first. What's happening here? This we don't understand." But it said, but the servants knew. The servants knew why. Because they were obeying God. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. Christians are educated way beyond their level of obedience. Way beyond the level of our obedience. If one more Bible study is going to make it for you, you're already in trouble. We've already had enough Bible studies to have it made. Talk to me for a moment. Talk to me. Listen to me carefully. Never try to explain God until you first obeyed him. We got a whole bunch of people that are giving you all kind of explanations, and whatever he says to you, do it. One of the reasons I love, Joyce, your ministry is you not only are a terrific Bible teacher, but you have practical application. You never teach me. I never hear one lesson you give without you helping me know what to do with the truth that you just gave me. You not only teach the Word of God, but you teach me how to apply the Word of God to my life so that I can get with it. And most Christians desperately need exercise. Okay. Let me just wrap this up here. If you'll give me 3 more minutes. Can I have 3? Can I have 4? Do I hear 5? Is there a 6 in the crowd? Oh, cut that out. Here's what I want you to know. Confidence and your attitude is a choice. Joyce, you were right on, and I loved what you were saying, and I thought if I could just come in behind it and underline it just a little bit more, it's a choice. A lot of things aren't choice. My gifts aren't a choice. My ability, my parents aren't. I can give you a list of 50 things that weren't a choice in my life that basically put me where I am to a certain extent. But the attitude you have right now is a choice. And most people don't realize that. Most people think their attitude was thrust upon them by someone else. They say, well, if you had to work where I have to work, you had to live where I have, you had to go to church where I got, if you had to live with who I live with. Wine on. It's a choice. That's why I love to teach it. In ability and giftedness, things that aren't a choice, you can only increase your development about 2 numbers. Are you with me? But in the area of choice, you can go from a 1 to a 10. You can go from a bad attitude to a great attitude. You can go from the bottom to the top. Margaret and I were doing a marriage seminar several years ago, Q&A time. I'll never forget. Q&A time, it's just kind of open duck season. You have no clue. I do it for humor. It just is amazing what you hear. A lady looked at Margaret and said, I've got a question to ask you. She said, now get it, it's a marriage seminar we're doing. She says, does John make you happy? As soon as she asked the question, did I make her happy? I thought, well, that's a good question. Because I think I'm an awesome husband. I was shocked. First of all, I was shocked at the quickness of the response of Margaret. It was kind of like, to be honest with you, it was kind of like she's been waiting all her life for someone to ask her that. Are you with me? I mean, it's kind of like, thank you, ma'am. Been waiting several years for that question. And Margaret leaned right into her, and I mean, she didn't even pause. She didn't reflect. She didn't think. She just said, no, she said, he doesn't make me happy. Now I'm standing here. It's my marriage conference. And I'm saying, honey, sweetheart, would you mind explaining to them what you mean? Have you ever asked somebody to explain what they meant, and so they explained what they meant? And when they explained what they meant, you wish you wouldn't have asked them to explain what they meant? It happened. I said, honey, would you explain to them what you mean? She said, well, sure, I'll be glad to do that. She looks right back to the lady. She said, I realized in the first 6 months of our marriage that he would never make me happy. Now, I don't know if you have the gift of discernment, but we're going downhill rather quickly. And then she said, because for the first 6 months of our marriage, that was my expectation of him. John will make me happy. I was teaching school, he was pastoring. I'd come home from school and I think, well, tonight we'll have dinner together. And John would call me and say, you know what, babe, I'm so sorry. Somebody's got hurt. I got to go to the hospital. I got to go to the emergency room. Sometimes I'd have to grade paper. And in the first 6 months, she said, just life happens. Life happens. And she kept saying, he'll make me happy. He'll make me happy. Well, yeah, he'll make me happy. Well, he'll make me happy. And she said, 6 months in the marriage, one day I awakened to the fact that John wouldn't make me happy. John couldn't make me happy. The only person in this world, as she looked at that lady, that can make me happy is me. It's a personal choice. And then she said, and when I took responsibility for my attitude in that choice, she said, from that time on, he's added immeasurably to my happiness. What was Margaret saying? Here's what Margaret is saying. Has everything to do with attitude. It has everything to do with confidence. There is a choice you have to make in everything you do. So keep in mind that in the end, the choice you choose is you. God bless you. You can be a confident woman. Thank you very much.